All right. Hello, hello. This is Mr. Huff, and this is Unit 4, Lesson 7, Executive Branch Unit Review. We have our test coming up, so I'm going to kind of walk you through this review, and then I'm going to point out just a few things to go back and take a look at from some of the other lessons in Unit 4. So let's get started here. All right, so in this unit, you learned about the many roles of the president and his vast executive power that has expanded over time. You also discovered the balancing act of American foreign policy with the Department of Defense and the State Department. This process should have helped you form your own thoughts and opinions on the following questions. What qualities must the president have to be an effective leader? How much power should the executive branch have? How should the president meet the needs of the people? In this lesson, you're going to review the unit through a series of questions and activities. Now, I'm not going to do the activities here in this video, but I encourage you to make sure that you're going through and doing these activities. That will definitely prepare you for the test. Be sure to complete the activities as they will prepare you for the topics on your test. That's just what I said. Okay. This review will ask you to recall the powers and functions of the executive branch of the U.S. government. It will also allow you to revisit the roles and responsibilities of the president, the election process, executive power, how federal bureaucracy works with the president and the cabinet, how independent agencies perform important functions, and how the executive branch interacts with other countries. So essentially, remember that the executive branch, it starts with the president, but there's all kinds of other things going on underneath with the different executive departments, the cabinet departments, diplomacy, all of that sort of thing. All right. So the President of the United States has many roles and many powers. Check your understanding of these by completing the concept web. In each box of the concept web, address one of the 9 presidential roles by writing the executive powers or duties that correspond to that role. All right, so again, I'm going to let you do that, but we're going to go back through and look at what some of these roles and powers are whenever I click through some of the other lessons. Diplomacy. In this unit, we explored ways the U.S. deals with other nations through careful foreign policy, including economic, military, and humanitarian actions. American foreign policy has expanded and evolved through the years according to U.S. strategies and interests abroad. Use the following questions to guide your review of foreign policy. Okay, what is the main difference between domestic affairs and foreign affairs? Remember, domestic affairs deal with things that are happening within the U.S. Foreign affairs deal with things that happen with other countries. And why did the U.S. shift from isolationism to internationalism? Remember, we talked about that, this big shift that took place in American history from we were really isolated to we were really involved with what was going on with other countries. So you're going to watch this video. It'll give you a really good overview, and you should be able to answer these questions at the end. And here's another video, and same thing. Okay, if you want to check your answers, remember the answers are here. I would encourage you, though, to try to do it on your own, because that's really, really an important part of the process is kind of making sure that you understand it. All right. So here's another video talking about bureaucratic vocabulary. I'll go back and talk about some of those terms here when we go back through these other lessons in just a second. But again, be sure you're watching this video. Okay, making connections. In this section, we'll practice writing answers to short answer questions. Why does the U.S. offer foreign aid to other nations? Name 3 parts of the executive branch and give brief descriptions of each. Again, if you're able to do that, you'll be fine on the test. You can do that on your own and check yourself right here with the answers. Okay, and then here's this review activity that you can do again to prepare for the test. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of these other lessons here in Unit 4 and just kind of touch on the key points. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but I do think it's important. The first lesson deals with the presidency, because the president is the head of the executive branch. We talked about qualifications for presidency, citizenship, age, residency. I'd make sure I understood those things because that's definitely an important part of this unit. Presidential terms, you should know how long the president serves. It's 4 years. And then understand term limits for the presidency, right? There are a president can only serve 2 terms per the Constitution right now, but that hasn't always been the case. So look at what it was before and how that changed and why that changed. I would definitely take a look at that. Then you can talk a little bit about the vice presidency, what the vice president does. And then we looked at this idea of presidential succession. What happens if the president dies or resigns or is removed from office by impeachment? Who takes over? And the 25th Amendment is a big part of that. I would definitely make sure I understood that the 25th Amendment sets up presidential succession. And here's kind of the order of things. So if the president dies, the vice president takes over. If the vice president then resigns, then the Speaker of the House takes over, etc. Okay. All right. I'll let you do all of that, and then you could watch these videos for each unit. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all that right now in this video, but that would be a good preparation. And of course, you can go back through the quick check. Okay. Moving on to 4.2, it talks about how the presidency is chosen. It talks about the Electoral College. I would definitely read carefully through that, understand how the Electoral College works. What are some flaws in the process? What are some reasons why it was set up that way? Talk about kind of different strategies or different ways that you could modify the Electoral College that people talk about. Okay, again, if you go back and watch these videos, that'll be a really good kind of review. I think that's important. And then you should be able to answer these questions. Why did the framers create an electoral college rather than just a direct election? What are the three major flaws of the electoral college system? And why do you think is the greatest flaw of the system? So, and then again, you can go back through the quick checks here. Then we talked about executive power. What are all the things that the presidents can do? And then this is a really, really important graphic here. I would definitely take a look at this. These are all the different types of powers that the president has: executive power, military power, legislative power, judicial power, appointment and removal power, and diplomatic power. I would know what those are and be able to give examples of each of those. And if you go through this, read through this, it definitely talks about all of that. Okay, here's executive, legislative, and judicial powers. And again, I would definitely read through that. You should be able to give an example of each of those types of powers. And here's appointment and removal power. We talked about that. Diplomatic and military power. It gives you examples here of that. And then activity. And there's just some questions to think about. Okay, so 4.4, we talked about the bureaucracy, how is it that all of these agencies that are part of the executive branch kind of work together? Okay, so there's all these different executive departments: state, defense, health and human services, homeland security, treasury, justice, interior, etc. All of these are departments of the executive branch, and each of those departments is headed by someone that is at the cabinet level. We call it a secretary of state, secretary of defense, secretary of health and human services, etc. So you can read about that. And then those people are all members of what's called the cabinet, which are these advisors to the president. All right, and so that. And then there are different types of agencies. There's independent executive agencies, independent regulatory commissions, government corporations. And so you want to, kind of understand that a little bit. Make sure you take a look at that. Okay. So moving on to 4.5, foreign policy. Again, foreign policy means how does the U.S. deal with other countries? And we talked about this concept of moving from isolationism to interventionism, and that's really, really significant. Make sure you understand that shift that took place. What does isolationism mean? What does interventionism mean? And what is it that happened to kind of lead to that shift? Okay. And that's what this is all about. It talks a little bit about kind of the history of that in here. But I would definitely make sure I understood that we move from isolationism to interventionism and kind of why that happened. Okay. You can watch the videos there. Okay. 4.6, diplomacy or force. It talks about, military is not the only way that we interact with foreign countries. We also do it with diplomacy, which is kind of negotiation and relationships. and it talks about how that works. All of that's headed by the State Department. The Secretary of State is the head of that executive department. Secretary of State is a cabinet level position, and they are responsible for interacting with foreign countries. We talked a little bit about the UN. So I read that. Foreign aid. Why is it that we help other countries? Why is it we give aid to foreign countries? So you read a little bit about that. All right. After you watch this video, you should be able to understand the responsibilities the Secretary of State has regarding foreign policy. And then you can go back and look at the quick check. And that's it, guys. That kind of gets us back to 4.7. The most important thing, guys, make sure that you go through and you read these things again, because all of this stuff is going to be part of that test. Otherwise, I think you guys are going to do awesome. If you need anything, reach out. But otherwise, good luck on the test.